I have no idea where to start, so let's start how the game does, shall we? With the tutorial. The first thing you'll notice about the game is its shoddy voice acting or lack thereof. This dude in the tutorial is voiced by AI, and his voice literally infuriates me to the point I had to exit the tutorial before it was finished. Here, listen.
Worry. We'll bring you up to speed. Now, let's start with the basics. First, let's teach you how to walk. Good, good. Keep it up. You're doing great for a drunk pig. All right, rookie.
That was just a few seconds of hearing-based torture. I endured this auditory anguish for about 8.5 minutes before I realized I was ending this pain one way or the other. Besides that, and the fact that while his mouth is running, it's also not moving. Ironic. I know. Dialogue and the overuse of it is annoying in the loadout screen as well. It's constantly pushing you to start the mission and repeating the same lines a million times over. Over, roger that, over, kill me. I'm just trying to create my loadout, but we'll talk about what that entails later.
All teams take a briefing at the main center.
45th, bird over the nest.
Roger that. Roger, continue your mission.
Let's talk about the story first. It's episodic, split between missions and locations. The locations have different investigations revolving around werewolves, zombies, wendigos, ghosts, you get the idea. The problem is that the same enemies show up every level, even in ones that don't even make sense, while also spawning out of nowhere. You can be walking around and then poof the magic dragon, you got somebody right behind you. The difficulty of the enemies is laughably balanced, with an undead moose tanking clips of damage while a werewolf dies within a few seconds. Even though the missions point out werewolves on the select screen and the investigation is centered around the lycanthropy, you'll see more crazy knife-wielding old women than you will werebeasts of any kind. Not only does that absolutely kill any sense of immersion, but it's important that I point this out before we talk about the loadout, since your loadout contains weapons, gear, and ammo that can be specific for killing each creature. You start out with an M4A1 with a hollow scope and a canted red dot. The hollow doesn't zoom enough to make the canted even necessary. Aiming has to be held down at all times and is formatted by the left key on the mouse, unable to be changed. They should add a toggle for aim option ASAP. Your starting submachine gun is a PP91 KEDR. It holds 32 bullets and has the kindest recoil I've ever seen on a base submachine gun this year. It comes with no sight equipped, but it doesn't really need one. Next, we have our starting weapon for rifles, the M14A. It comes equipped with a 1 to 6 times scope and a 10 round magazine. The scope increases by 2 times, so it's actually just a 2, 4, and 6 times weapon. Very forgiving with the recoil here as well. With every primary comes a secondary, that being the M1911 pistol, with no sight and less generous recoil when aiming than the rest. The mag only holds 10 bullets at a time, and due to the limited damage and rather slow weapon switch, you might as well walk backward and load your primary weapon instead of pulling this baby out. Every other weapon and attachment is unlocked by leveling up. I can give the game some credit here, it's fairly generous with the earn rate. You gain 1 weapon, this includes the ones we'll talk about next, every single time you level up. It definitely helps with things feeling worth it and giving you a sense of reward and accomplishment. Whenever you unlock a sight, optic, grip, laser, silencer, you get the idea. It is unlocked for every weapon capable of equipping it. which is something that far more games should implement. It helps with the feeling of immersion as well, a really good touch. The rest of the gear consists of a special, starting out with a portable light, making loud noise with a bright light to scare the monsters away. It runs off batteries that need replaced after a period of time. It's also blindingly bright if we're being honest, with the light being too white and acting more like a flashbang at times. To the right of where we have the explosives, we start with a frag grenade that's laughably awful. It looks like a bouncing ball and explodes like pop rocks. This baby would be more at home in Big Time Pranks 3 than in a war against the creatures of the dark. The stun grenade doesn't fare much better, along with the other throwables due to some real janky physics. Interestingly though, the stun grenade explosion is bigger than the frag, and it holds more weight when it bounces. The glow stick lights up areas and paths for a short period of time, and at level 4 can be replaced with the road flare. Don't worry though, it bounces too. With no way to crank your arm back or clock it, it's impossible to use these in some areas. And that same missing feature also hinders the frag as well, since you can't time the explosion. The optics are just night vision goggles that become clearer every time you unlock a new pair. They're pretty pointless in all honesty. May as well walk around in the dark. You ain't Sam Fisher and these aren't from Metal Gear Solid 5, that's for sure. Lastly, we need to talk about the ammo types. There's regular that does balanced damage to all enemies, silver that does increased damage to werewolves but less to basic enemies, white phosphorus that is good against armored enemies but pretty bad against ghosts, and engraved bless that favors ghosts when it comes to damage but does far less to the rest. Due to just about every type of creature showing up in every mission, this selection actually feels pointless, instead of it being the "should I take the chance?" question that the game wants it to be. There's no strategy here, just pick the basic one. Plus the fact that the menus suck, and that once you get to the level screen after you go through the loadouts and you can finally see the bosses, you can't go back and prepare for them anyway, making this feel like an even bigger joke. I hate this inclusion, and the difference is so slight that you can't even notice that it was even there to begin with. The AI is as basic as it comes. Your teammates gets killed very often and need revived. The majority of the enemies just charge you and soak bullets, then the few that don't feel cheap and aggravating. The lack of a monster compendium to help plan a strategy and discover weaknesses also makes all the combat feel sluggish, uneventful, repetitive, and boring. The sound design is dog water, and the game is better off played on mute, until it gets a major overhaul anyway. I wanted to shove a dad blame pencil through my eardrums at points. There is no sound cues for enemy locations, instead it's the same overwhelming sounds, always making it seem like you're absolutely surrounded by zombies. All around you, bro. Surround sound. All around you. You can hear enemies that are miles away and not hear the ones right next to you. I already brought up the dialogue, the guns sound decent enough, although the impact sounds very significantly every shot. The music isn't bad, though I suppose it's nothing memorable either. It sounds like I hate the game just talking about this part. See what I did there? But I don't. I promise, the sound design is just that bad. And no matter how much that bugs me, it's the bugs that cause me to quit the game in its entirety. The hit detection is awful, either by design or not, I'm not even sure, but I can point blank shoot an unmoving enemy and it act as if I never did. Sometimes during investigation, I can select evidence with it not even registering that I did, and then making the level unplayable. Some enemies just didn't do damage no matter how much they attacked me, while basic enemies randomly would one-shot me. The list goes on. Some games with bugs could be fun, not this one. The only game with bugs I'm enjoying right now is Earth Defense Force 4.1, but even after all that, there is some promise, poking through the rubble. So I have some advice regarding it. The map designs are atmospherically good, with dark, dense, and creepy houses with woods where anything can jump out at any time. A caveat to that being that some of the environments don't make sense in regards to the story taking place there. For example, imagine dark woods with entirely dead trees, no streams, no greenery, nothing remotely harboring life, and yet it has people camping out in the middle of them. These environments, regardless of the logic behind them, do have some fairly good jump scares though, and the investigations can be mildly interesting at times, although nothing memorable. The creatures, if balanced better, have a creepy scare factor to them that would make for decent enemies in a better constructed level. The gunplay, although sluggish, is serviceable and could be fun for a few rounds with some friends if the rest of the game was improved. Character creation of some sort, even bare bones, would be highly appreciated, especially since the game is intended for multiplayer co-op. Voice the characters yourself, or heck, ask me and I'll voice some. Just give them some life instead of the robotic nature of them now. Tune the dialogue down, please, especially during the loadout screen. Nobody wants to hear pointless lines whenever they are putting a loadout together, especially ones telling you to hurry up. Gosh, that was a weird decision. Allow multiple loadout slots, at least enough for each situation or each ammo type. Make them nameable as well if possible, but it's not a huge need. Werewolf, ghost, armored, something to differentiate said loadouts per occasion would still be helpful. Brighten the levels up a bit so they don't all require the night vision goggles, or change the goggles to have limited battery instead of visibility. Or heck, make the upgrades affect things like thermal or other ways to see in the dark. Fix the throwing motion, allow for clocking of your items, as well as fix the physics so the items don't bounce around like they're all bouncy balls. Add some kind of sprint mechanic so I'm not moseying through the forest that are filled with things that want me dead, as if I was just taking a lovely little stroll through the park. And for the love of all things, add either controller support or toggle based aiming. I have CP and holding that mouse button feels worse than my head before the graphical issues were starting to be fixed. Oh yeah, and there is a close combat weapon I forgot to mention, but it's basically useless and should be toggle based as well, with variety on what the weapon is. In fact, I would love to be able to have a close combat based class with a silver katana for werewolves or a chain with a crucifix for ghosts. You get the idea. All in all, do I recommend this game? Not at all. I see the promise though, and if they continue to support it and make it far more playable, I'll definitely bring it up again whenever it's better, as long as I know about it. I know I was really harsh on the game, but there is a lot of interesting ideas here, and a lot of things that if executed properly or fixed for the future could make for a pretty fun experience, especially if you just want an Arma game where you can go around and shoot monsters with your friends. That would be fun. As of right now though, use the dialogue in the game to get info from those you don't trust, and for more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. I really appreciate you for making it this far, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Just because the game is called S.P.A.T doesn't mean it needs to be like Shout Out Scat. Granny, put the knife away. There's werewolves out here. You took that dad blame Red Riding Hood fairy tale far too seriously. Gosh, Dylan, get this game. You'd love it.